Okay, so I'm just gonna try and roll through this fast because you've got the other video of how to throw. So I'm doing my centering. This is coning to try and get all the clay just to kind of get rotation memory. Okay, so first what I'm going to do is show you a technique that's called throwing off the hump. So if you're going to make a lot of little pieces and you don't want to have to keep getting new clay and recenter, you can do this technique. So because I'm going to do spouted pieces for you, I want to make my spouts first and then set them off to the side and then I can attach them later. So what I'm going to do is you have to really make sure that your clay is centered for this. Doesn't have to be all the way like at the bottom, but it's got to be all the way at the top. So you guys can see how I'm kind of singling out a little area, and that's all just by pushing more in with that finger, okay? And I'm gonna go through all the throwing processes. I've got some air bubbles in here, and I'm just gonna be doing this really shallow, okay? So I'm not drilling the well out very far. I'm not gonna pull this out very far, except I got an air bubble pop right there. So what I'm doing right now is I'm throwing a spout. So this is called throwing a spout off the hump. Okay, so you just gotta kind of imagine that from like here down is like your bat, okay? So I'm going through all the same throwing techniques. So I centered, I drilled the well, I've got an air bubble in there, no bad one. It's probably gonna give me some problems, okay? So I'm going to raise it. And I'm gonna want this spout to get really nice and narrow. So I wanna kind of pull at a diagonal. And I can clean it up as I go, okay? Got a hardcore air bubble right in there. Probably came from my coning. Okay, so the difference in this, instead of pulling straight up, you want to pull at a diagonal, okay? And that's what's going to make this narrow. You're going to kind of, it's going to hug up closer and closer to your finger. See that air bubble in there? Okay, so I've almost got it closed up as much as possible. Let's see what air bubble is.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Okay, so basically what I'm doing is not only am I pulling at a diagonal, I'm also kind of getting it narrow enough to where it is like my finger, my middle finger that's in there, it's becoming, so like I have my middle finger in there, and then as I'm raising, I'm just literally kind of laying the clay up along my finger, and that's what's going to get it narrow. It's getting pretty thin right there. So if it starts getting thin on you before you get it coned in enough, you can also choke it. So first thing I'm going to do is trim the top. Kind of have to look in here, see where I'm going to have to cut. So I'm kind of making another indentation. I'm going to have to cut kind of right along here. And I like my spouts to be a bit narrower, but I don't like them to be this long, so I'm probably going to trim. So here's the choking. It's getting thin there, and this is where you can also kind of decide on your spout shape, like what you want it to look like. So here I'm just working through the shape of it. I want mine to be a little more narrow, so I'm going to choke it more. If it starts getting too small for you to get your finger in there, you can use the back half of a needle tool. And this just takes some practice. Some kind of video watching and some practice. So I'm going to trim this again. And then I'm going to kind of narrow out that top edge there, kind of make that edge a little crispy so it'll cut the water or whatever tea or whatever you're pouring out. Okay, then go about right here. And you can either go all the way with your needle tool, or you can start with a needle tool and then cut the rest of the way with a wire tool. And then very carefully just pull it off, set it off to the side. Okay, so that's throwing off the hump. And most of the time I recommend in throwing multiple, because you'll get like different shapes and stuff like that, which will it may change what the overall design looks. Okay, so basically this part now is I can either do a kind of a squatty body to make it look more like a teapot, or I can do like a taller vase. So it just kind of depends on the look that you want. I think I'm gonna go kind of the squattier because it's less raising that I have to do and it won't take me as much time. You want to use about 95%. So most all of them. Okay, so I'm compressing out the bottom here. Okay, when I do my first pull on big pieces, I like to do kind of volcano, so I like to bring it in like I was showing you how to do the spout, because then by the time I'm done, it'll be nice and straight. So I like to do that pull kind of all in one go. Like that. And then I'll kind of start pulling straight up. So that's what you start running into if you start going a little too fast for yourself. Try and work more of this clay down here at the bottom up into my piece. Well, it kind of turned into a vase anyway. Okay. All right, so if it's a pouring container, you don't want anything to like pour out the top. So you're gonna wanna make sure you get your spouts lower or right on the side. And due to that, you kind of want your top edge to be in a little bit so that if you do have any water that escapes past your spout, the top of it kind of keeps it from spilling out. So I'm kind of just working on my shaping here. So maybe I want a nice, like wide shoulders, so kind of making a vase here, going back to being it kind of squatty. It's 125. All right, guys, why don't you go ahead and start cleaning up, and then I'll have this finished. What? No. Yeah, sorry, I'm throwing.
Throwing shade.
So I want to bring that in. Kind of doing a bring in. So kind of like that. Okay, so I go through my trimming process, right? Make everything look nice and neat. And you've got two ways you can do spouts. The first easy way is by making your spout just in the piece itself. So you want to go away from you, and with your dominant hand, so I'm right-handed, I'm gonna put 2 fingers on the outside. Then I'm gonna flip this hand around and then just go, I'm gonna pull this way and pull this way, like this.
Oh.
Okay, and so that gets the start of it, and then you can go in and you could even kind of mold it a little bit like this, and then just like with a handle, I can kind of start to pull that, start getting it thinner and making it look nicer. Okay, so that's one way that you can do a spout. And then the other way, like I already pre-showed you, you score and slip. You'd either cut a full hole out, or you could get hole punchers and do it almost like colander wise, kind of like that. Score, slip.
Oh, okay.
Double lace.
Yeah.
You should do this when it's leather hard,
Yeah.
too. It's a lot easier. Let me move this around. Okay. And then something like that. Then the opposite side of where you have your spout, so I put my spouts pretty much opposite of each other. That's where you put your handle, because you want it on the exact opposite side. Okay? Pouring vessels 101. We're done.